Hi! Welcome to Queen of the Classroom. I'm your host, Amy Allen. I do have a crown. Maybe I need to wear that in the future podcast. Very first one. We're gonna see how this goes. I have a lot of people to thank for this. Just for kind of pushing me out of my comfort zone. And this is something that I've definitely never thought was in my wheelhouse, but I have a lot of supporters, and I'm very, very, very grateful for those individuals to kind of push me a little bit. I think I was holding back quite a bit because I kept thinking, I have to have everything perfect. I have to have the perfect lighting. I have to have the perfect video editing software. I have to have the perfect skin, because, girls, we break out all the time. I have to know exactly what I'm going to say. I have to have the right equipment. I have to take a shower and curl my hair. I have to look good. But kind of had an epiphany earlier where if I wait for everything to be absolutely perfect, it's never going to happen. Plus, what kind of message is that telling my students that wait until things are perfect and then go try something? It's not a good message, and it's definitely not a message I want to take forward with my students or with anybody. So here we are. And I'm so nervous. It's weird. It's so weird to be nervous. And as I was prepping for beginning a podcast, I read all these articles. I did all the things trying to prepare myself. And one of the things that I read had said one of the biggest obstacles was that people aren't used to the idea of talking to no one. I was teasing my class this week and said, I don't think that's going to be a problem for me. I talk to no one. I mean, it's a screen, so I'm talking to some individuals, but I'm talking to no one 4 or 5 days a week. I know that there's people on the other end listening, but it's usually me talking more than anybody else. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. And as a middle school teacher, we get used to repeating ourselves over and over and over again because we teach the same thing 4 or 5 times within 2 days. So we get used to the monotony of it. And I don't think that's going to be an obstacle for me. So with this very first one, I had a script, I had it all ready to go, and it's kind of already thrown out the window, which is pretty common to what it's going to be. Same with my everyday lessons. When I have something laid out that I want to do, and then there's usually something that comes up, and it's those teachable moments. It's those unplanned parts of your day when you absolutely take advantage of those, and you really dive deep into whatever gets brought up in class. It could be, oh goodness, this year has brought up a ton of violence and injustice, and some heavy topics. And it's part of my job to help my 7th graders navigate those without bringing in bias, without bringing in my own viewpoints as much as I can. But I'm a very passionate person, so that gets a little tricky sometimes. But honoring that time where if a student brings up an important topic, honoring that time and really diving in. I tell my students right at the beginning of every school year, and I tell my parents this on back to school night, that I care way more about my students as people than as I do my 7th grade student. I want them to know their value and to know that they're seen and they're noticed. And I find that middle school is that very vital season in a student's career, because it's where a lot of things are changing. And sometimes it seems like you're the only one that's changing. And I like to remind students that your uniqueness is so valuable. Your weirdness is your superpower. Your quirkiness, your love of whatever you're passionate about, that's what makes you so special. And I don't want students to shy away from that at all. So I spend a lot of time character building. I spend a lot of time, I call them truth talks. And in my Instagram bio, that I even address this, I say I'm good with words. I tend to be good with words sometimes. Sometimes I just blabble on, and that's probably what some of these podcasts will be. But just stick with me. There's always a message. There's always something to take away. But I also am a giver of pep talks, truth bombs, and overall savagery. I don't shy away from that. I want to show students that they don't have to shy away from that either, and that words have immense power, and you can use them for good, to build someone up, or you can choose them to tear someone down. And I really, really emphasize that good side. So I hope that as we start diving into some topics, that my why is always at the forefront of this. And I very eloquently wrote it down. So I'm going to read it word for word. I promise it won't be like this all the time, but I want to get it right. This is very, very important. So my why behind this is that I want every student to know that they are seen, they are noticed, they are wanted. I want to show how relationships are the key to building trust and respect. And once you have that trust and respect, that's where the good stuff happens. That's where the learning happens. That's where the risk-taking happens. And that's where you want to get with students. And like I said earlier, it's vitally important growth years for middle school and high school. And I want to help navigate those changes with self-love and with empathy, and equip students with those high standards. Set high standards for yourself so that you know throughout your life when you're not being treated how you should be treated, and how to navigate those highs and lows that inevitably will happen in anybody's life. And I'm hoping that there's something to take away each time that you visit me on Queen of the Classroom. So we did it. I did my first one. I feel so weird. I'm going to say something else too. Okay, totally not planned. But there's only been a couple moments where I've been super embarrassed as a teacher. And I don't really get embarrassed because I teach middle school, so I bathe in awkwardness. And there's been 2 moments. And it hasn't been something from what I've done. It's something that has happened to me. And one time it was my second year of teaching. And in the building that I taught in, it was a 6, 7, 8. I taught 7th. And so we were welcoming in the next year's students. So I had taught the 8th graders, some of the 8th graders that were in there. And then I had just met my new batch. But we had a pep assembly at the end of the day to introduce all of the staff. And I was towards the end of the ceremony. And once they said my name, the crowd of students erupted in applause and cheer. I had no idea. You always hope as a teacher that you are making some sort of impact, that you, I don't really strive to be well liked. I strive to be myself. And when that happened, like even talking about it gets me very emotional, because I think that was the validation that I didn't know that I needed to keep going. And that being myself was more than enough. And that's that's what I want to bring to students, is that you are always have been, always, and you will always be more than enough. Always. The second time that I got embarrassed was something very similar. We were doing NJHS inductions, and I had opted to be the person who announced my team's inductees. And when it was my turn to get to the podium, again, students erupted in applause just from saying, okay, and now we have Miss Allen introducing the legacy inductees. Eruption of applause. I will always remember those moments. Always. And it's not to be conceited. It's not to be, oh, look at me, I'm so well liked. It's that being me, being authentically me, is reaching those students. It's not a stretch. I don't have to try to be someone else. I can just be me. And it's more than enough. So I think I'm going to leave that with you today. Is that you have always been and always will be more than enough. Remember that. Sometimes it's hard to remember that. I hope that you will. At the end of every podcast, I'm going to leave you how I leave my students every single class, every single period from year one. And here's how I leave them. Have a great day, make smart choices, and be kind to one another. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.